Welcome! We are wrapping up our first exciting season looking at the latest cloud technology innovations for supply chain management with our special guest, MuleSoft. Stick around if you want to know how to create an agile, cost-effective API integration strategy with your customers and logistics service providers.
Technology innovation has never moved as fast as it is today, and it will never move this slow again. So now is the time to accelerate your supply chain transformation at the speed of AWS. Join us to explore the supply chain of the future today.
We end our season-long look at the life of a shipment with a focus on customer experience. Companies like MuleSoft help businesses to implement an agile API integration strategy and delight their B2B trading partners. Today, we look at B2B integrations built on Amazon AKS that help increase options in terms of suppliers, logistics service providers, and sourcing geographies. Later, I'll be joined by my colleagues and industry experts, Kimberly Haggerty and Michael Ingardia, for our Supply Chain Insights Roundtable. But now, for our Manifest segment, let's dive deep into the API B2B integration technology of MuleSoft. Prashant, thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited to have you here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me here, Michele.
So we have seen how transportation logistic companies are trying to differentiate their services, bringing a better customer experience. And this comes with, and thanks to increased agility and speed of innovation. How is MuleSoft helping them to achieve this goal?
Yeah, Michele, that's a great $1 million question, right? Because agility and scale is a problem that all industries are trying to scale, right? Change is the only constant. Digital transformation is existential for our customers. So to solve this problem, MuleSoft believes that the future of business is composable. That means packaging your technical or digital capabilities as building blocks and making it available for the others to innovate. So if you talk about the supply chain ecosystem, various players can create and expose their building blocks, and the speed at which you can tap into the innovation done by other players in your ecosystem and the flexibility and agility in reconnecting, recomposing, reorchestrating, as opposed to recreating these building blocks, is what leads to agility.
You are helping customers to build around them a connected ecosystem of trading partners. And this is fantastic. But to get there, you need the right IT infrastructure.
Right.
And I think that AWS and MuleSoft are complementing each other in this space.
Yeah.
How are you making the best of AWS to deliver the right infrastructure to your customers?
You're absolutely right. The problem that we're trying to solve is such a big that one player can't solve it, right? So the MuleSoft and AWS can complement one another, right? I would characterize three main reasons where we do that. First is that Mule can help provide a liquid marketplace. So whatever your capabilities are, now you can expose them in a portal as a marketplace. So that makes it easy for other players to consume. The second is the last mile coverage. So once you go into the internal of an organization, you have legacy databases, you have multiple ERP systems, and they all need to be connected. So this internal back-end plumbing, the dirty work, if you may, is done by Mule, right? So that makes life easier. And the third, I would say, is that for a developer, if you're creating a custom app, you can now discover what AWS services are available, drag, drop, configure them versus recode, right? So all of this helps in the agility.
You mentioned something that is really worth it a deep dive, the plumbing that you build for thousands of customers, enabling them to use the MuleSoft architecture on AWS. Would you like to elaborate more?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that I will say is that the design principle for all of the customer architectures that we have is based on the composable enterprise and the API-led connectivity. And that means really creating and freeing up the nouns and verbs of your organization so that businesses can combine them in unique ways. And that's what drives agility. So, this is an illustrative example of a freight and a transportation company for mid-markets. The business strategy required them to onboard partners really quickly. And so what they did is they created an EDI transformation layer using MuleSoft's Partner Manager, which essentially did two things for them. It helped them cater for the different data formats as well as transport protocols. And as a result of this, they were able to cut down their time to onboard a new customer from 6 to 9 months to mere 60 days.
This is very exciting. It's really a C-level change in the business dynamic of our customer.
Right. And so if I talk a little bit more about the architecture, it's typically a 3-layered architecture, right? The bottom layer is a system API that helps you unlock the nouns of your organizations, typically the system of records. And then the next level is the process APIs, which basically orchestrates your system APIs and mimics your business models. And on the top is the experience layer. And that experience layer is catered towards your end customers and drives the delightful customer experiences.
I really love the concept of multi-layered architecture. They really allow a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, and the beauty of this architecture is that each layer abstracts the complexity below and helps create the building blocks. And so what that means, so if you're talking about that shipment 360 API, you can see that it draws from the customer, transport, inventory, multiple things. That helps not only service the partner, but that same shipment 360 API can now also service your customer experience through your service portal. The same can be used to build maybe a mobile application. So I would say in line with our design principles of agility, this 3-layered architecture is perfectly geared to deliver on that.
My understanding is that the pinnacle or the cornerstone of your architecture is Elastic Kubernetes Services, right?
Right.
So these Amazon AKS is at the core of your architecture. Can you please elaborate more about that?
One of the big trends that I'm seeing in the industry right now is microservices-based architecture deployed on a Kubernetes platform is the prevalent model. So EKS is really helpful over here in multiple ways. First of all, provisioning, managing, configuring, monitoring, all of the essentially, right, operationalization of that hardware plus networking is difficult. What EKS does is allows us to offload this burden to that, to EKS. So that frees us up to do a lot more innovation. It basically helps us bring down the TCO for us and for our customers.
I see your architecture as a very good example of a well-architected framework where you have very few components that are engineered so well that are taking away a lot of complexity from the customer. And one of those components is Amazon Transit Gateway. Why is so important?
We've changed from the way we used to deploy in the VM world. In the current model, what we do is we take the Mule runtime, we layer the customer's application, we package it together, and we deploy that as one pod within the EKS worker node. And so what that does is it gives us the ability to scale. Now, when you think in terms of other applications or customers trying to access this, that's where the AWS Transit Gateway comes in, and it makes it much simpler, right? You can apply better security, better governance of all the resources. And if I put myself in the customer's position, right, they now see AWS as an extension of their own data center. We also have connectivity from our customers' deployment EKS into our control plane. And that connectivity allows us to manage all of these deployments from a single pane of glass. So as a customer number of deployments increase within their own organization or even across organization, that scale is what is delivered by MuleSoft through EKS and Transit Gateway.
And another interesting part of this architecture is that you're moving away totally from the VMs into containerized architecture. And this creates workload isolation, right?
Yeah. I spent a decade in various financial organizations. And one of the biggest problems, or the cardinal sins, if you will, you can commit as a managed service provider, is the noisy neighbor problem, right? One application troubling another application. So what has happened is we have the ability to box the resources that you can use. So if it's memory or if it's CPU, you can put a boundary around that. And of course, you can, with the threshold limits, you can scale within a boundary. But what that does is it makes troubleshooting very easy, right? So if you were to have multiple applications on a VM, troubleshooting is a nightmare. So when a shipment comes across or if there is a spike because of Black Friday or something, the businesses can feel comfortable that their business is going to scale and their platform is going to be an enabler in that.
Yeah, so auto-scaling is helping
Absolutely.
Provisioning sufficient resources.
Yes.
Well, this sounds amazing. I think that you guys are really solving a lot of challenges in a very clever way. What is at the horizon? What do you think is in the future of interconnected networks across supply chains from the API and ADI connectivity point of view?
The global supply chain ecosystem platform is difficult to solve. And that's where, our customers depend on leaders like us to do innovation on their behalf. So if I talk in terms of innovation, I can give you two key areas, right? So first is around GraphQL. As we had seen in the previous example in the shipment API, there is a need to reach out to multiple elements like order, customer, invoice, and all of that to build a true shipment 360. And on top of that, there is a real need to customize individual attributes of that data. Now, that's a difficult task. But this is where GraphQL helps, right? It helps you query one node of the graph and get all of the elements depending on your business context. So, what MuleSoft is doing is we take this data federation and add API federation on top of it. So providers can federate multiple APIs into one data service, and trading partners can consume multiple flexible as per their business needs, whatever elements they want. So, a simple way to explain that would be that it is like a simple SQL query across the enterprise building blocks. And, that drives agility.
Prashant, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks.
What is the value proposition that you are getting from the MuleSoft conversation for the line of business?
So the key takeaway for me were really around the volume and the velocity of data. So if you look at our global supply chain and our global value networks, the key for the line of business is all about speed and agility. How is that data moving through my network, and how am I able to use that data to drive intelligent business decisions?
So technology owners need to enable you to have more speed, more agility. What are the technologies that are helping to achieve these goals, Michael?
I think the technologies there are obviously cloud-based computing, and we've got APIs enabling the ability to create an interface between you and your trading partner network. And so having that interface and then having an integration platform in between, I think provides a lot of the ability to evolve those back-end systems independently of the contracts you have with your trading partners.
And once we deliver this to the line of business, how this is shaping new ways of doing business? How is this changing the way CPG companies or retailers or logistics service providers are managing supply chains?
So if you look at the way the business models are evolving today, they're becoming more of a digital business model. So your traditional B2B and B2C business models are actually merging, and they're creating a more complex global network where the volume of data is only going to continue to increase. So being able to process that data and expand it globally and then be able to deal with disruptions is really going to be a challenge the industry is facing.
Yeah, I would like to double click on this concept because I would like to ask Michael how we can address even today the future challenge of this expanding complexity and size of the network and expanding volume of data. So you mentioned before cloud computing as an important technology in this space. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more about this?
So I think as things expand geographically, having data centers around the world becomes expensive if you want to do it yourself. So being able to leverage a cloud platform that already has those points of presence inside of different countries and different geographical areas, I think allows you to leverage those. And then being able to scale up and use that infrastructure and then scale back down based upon peaks and volumes allows for that agility, both in terms of cost as well as in terms of IT. And it's much more efficient than, let's say, trying to do all that yourself or have your own assets that you own.
So we've seen that the main problem is to allow agility and innovation at a faster clip. And we have seen how API, GraphQL are helping us to move away from the old paradigm of patching and EDI. And we also see now cloud computing can be the answer to host complex and sophisticated platforms that are blending together all these features. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us, Kimberly and Michael. Thank you. Now I'd like to leave you with 3 key takeaways. First, to enable a robust, flexible supply chain, it is necessary to build a connected network of trading partners using scalable B2B integration technologies. Next, a modern B2B integration ecosystem relies on 3 layers: the system layer, the process layer, and the customer experience layer, built on top of a scalable serverless cloud infrastructure. And lastly, to improve B2B customer experience, the future implementation will be increasingly based on API, gradually embracing technologies such as GraphQL and shifting away from batch EDI processing. It has been an incredibly exciting first season. If you missed any of our episodes, please be sure to check out our YouTube playlist. Thanks for joining us.